Hi, welcome to this lecture about reading strategies. We are going to talk about chapter 41 in your textbook. If you have not printed out the PowerPoint that accompanies chapter 41, you might want to do that now so that you can take notes as we go along. Please open your book to page 41 so that I can point you to some various page numbers that you might like to look at along the way. When we think of reading strategies, we're thinking about how we go about becoming a better reader while we are going through the reading process. We need to know what we read so that we are in a good position to use information that we have read to write our papers and articulate our ideas. So this is where chapter 41 comes in. When you think of taking stock of your reading, think about these things. Why are you reading? For pleasure, work, school, or another reason? When you have a reading assignment, how do you prepare? Do you take notes in the margins of your book? Do you underline things or highlight? What's your strategy? Do you ensure that you understand the assignment? How do you motivate yourself? Does your mind wander? Mine does, if I'm not sitting in a very specific place where I can be focused. Do you highlight, underline, and annotate, meaning take notes in the margins? If you don't understand what you've read, what do you do? Do you just say, okay, I give up? Or do you go back and read again? Do you underline things that stick out to you and then go and reread to see if that helps clarify? What attitudes do you bring to the text that's been assigned to you? How well do your reading processes work for you? These are all things that you really need to think about because when writing a research paper, you do a lot of reading. And even when you work on the literary analysis papers later in the semester, you will, again, be reading a lot. It is a comp class, which is a combination of reading and writing. Let's talk about how we read strategically. You have to realize that academic writing is challenging, and different texts require a different amount of effort. Scholarly articles present content and arguments that you need to understand, but they often assume that readers already know the concepts and vocabulary, so they don't generally give a lot of background information. Well, that might mean you have to find that background information yourself. Because again, if they're not giving it to you, you might need it to actually understand the text. So different texts require different kinds of effort. Some can be read fairly quickly. A lot of what students find on the internet can be read really quickly, which is why students want to incorporate internet articles into their research papers. But I'm here to tell you that the majority of the time, that information is not credible. So we can't always take the easy way out just because it's quicker. General overviews tend to be easy to read and something that is quicker. When you think about preparing to read, especially these difficult texts, prepare a table. And you can find this on page 398 in the book. You may remember this, the KWL chart. If you're writing a paper, they give you the example about photosynthesis. Well, what do you already know about photosynthesis? What do you want to know? And when you're finally at the end of your reading, what did you learn? This is a really good way to gather information. You can preview the text. It's usually a good idea to start by skimming a text. Read the title, the subtitle, any headings, maybe the first and last paragraph or the first sentences of the middle paragraphs. Look at any illustrations or visuals. This ultimately gives you a roadmap of what the article is about. You'll know pretty soon whether or not it's above your reading level. Maybe you need to move on to find something else, and that's okay. Now, notice that it says preview a text. You don't write a research paper by skimming your texts. You're not going to be able to write an effective paper or wrap your brain around the concept, let alone the opposing voice. So preview is simply just a preview. Consider the rhetorical situation. You might want to look at page 399 in your textbook, where the authors lay out for you essentially what that means. What's the purpose of the article? Who is the audience for the article? What genre is it written in? What's the author's stance? In what medium has it been written? These are all things that help you understand the source and how it may or may not support what you are wanting to write about. When you think about your initial response, ask yourself these questions. What is your initial reaction? Why did you feel that way? This can be your intellectual reaction or your emotional reaction, especially when you're writing research papers that are argumentative in nature. You will have an emotional response. Hopefully, you've chosen a topic that you're passionate about. And so you would have some type of reaction to what you're reading, whether you agree or disagree. If you didn't have a reaction, note that. Maybe that's not the best source to use. When you think about your reaction, why do you agree or disagree? Write that in the margins. Is this because of personal experience or certain positions you hold? As much as possible, you want to keep those opinions out of your analysis, but it is helpful to take those notes in the margins. So think about that. Make sure you are annotating your sources. You should have sources printed out when possible, or saved in some way on your computer that you can take notes in the margins. Highlight keywords and phrases or sentences. Connect ideas with certain colors. Circle any new words you don't know. If something's unfamiliar to you, have a symbol. We have to read with a purpose. We have to be active readers. That's how we engage with the text. Think about your own coding strategy. Your book gives you these ideas on page 401. These little symbols can help you keep up with things that maybe are contradicting what you thought or confirm what you thought. Maybe it's confusing, something that's important. Have a strategy, have a coding process. It will help you be a better reader for sure. Pay attention to pages 402 and 403 in your textbook. They've given you an article and shown you ways to annotate in the margins if you've never done this before. If you've never read articles and annotated, this will be new to you, but once you begin doing it, it is an incredible strategy to use. When you move on to the next step in your degree process or your career, you may find that you have to read a lot of material, and being able to annotate is important. Play the believing and doubting game. That's something that is another good reading strategy. Think of as many reasons as you can for believing what the writer says and as many reasons as you can for not believing. And that will also help you when you think about the section of your research paper where you have to present the other side's opinion. It will be different from yours. What's believable about what information you're using? What is not believable? Reflect, reread, persist. Again, some texts are very difficult. You may have no interest in the subject matter, or understanding it may require that you have knowledge you don't have. Maybe you just don't have a clear sense of why you have to read it at all. Those are all fair things. But don't quit. Persist. Look for something that's familiar. Reread it. Reread it again. Be persistent. Studies even show that students who don't do well in school attempt to read a difficult text and then they just say, I don't understand, and they quit. But successful students try and try again. Ask for help. Think about how the text works. What is it saying? What is it attempting to do? You can even try to think about, let me go back to this just a second. You can even go back to thinking of taking a note on each paragraph and writing in the margin just one sentence about what the paragraph is trying to say. That's a great way to see if you understand what is going on. Look on pages 406 and 407 in your book. This is, again, another sample of ways to annotate by writing concise sentences about paragraphs and what they may be about. This will just give you, again, another reading strategy. So to get a visual of what that might look like, look at page 406 and 407. Again, more reading strategies. Remember, summarizing is when you're restating a text's main ideas in your own words. It should be about the same length. It should be very concise and short and to the point. Identify patterns. Can you color code passages to help you follow the reading? In other words, are you seeing reoccurring words and phrases, images, metaphors? Highlight them in the same color. If you'd like to see a sample of what this looks like, look on page 409 and 410 in your book. It's a great visual to see how things that they have highlighted in blue are all the same idea. They're just synonyms. The author's not using the same word over and over, but the author is making the same point. And by identifying, by color coding, it's very helpful to help you put it all together. Can you count up the parts? This is a two-step process. First, you count the things, how many of this, how many of that, and then afterwards, you see what you can conclude about the writing. So count the words, count the sentences, count the paragraphs, count the images. Your book on page 410 talks about this strategy. It's just another way to look at the text and analyze it. When you think about the argument, when you're looking at an argumentative source, which again is going to pertain to most of the secondary sources you should be using this semester, what argument does the claim make? What's the thesis? How is the claim supported? What reasons does the writer provide? What evidence does he give? You should be doing the same thing when you write your paper. What appeals are used besides logical ones? Emotions, common ground, credibility. You'll be using these same logical appeals in your own writing. So look at those that you're reading to see how to do that. Do you see any counter arguments? In other words, do they respectfully and accurately present the other side? What outside sources of information does the writer cite? All of those are important. Think about the article from a larger standpoint. Who else cares about this? What are their ideas? Are there ideas and concepts in the article that could help you understand the larger conversation that's going on out in the world about it? Are there terms and terminology that you need to really understand because it's particular to that group or ideology? Don't assume your reader is going to know those terms. There may be times in your paper that you actually have to define that, and that's okay. Note that when you're reading. Whom does the writer cite? Is it academic writers? Who are these people that he or she is supporting? You need to know that. So again, when you think about reading sources, you cannot be a passive reader. You have to be an active reader. That's the only way we read effectively. It's the only way we write effectively. It's the only way that we are able to ultimately bring into our own writing information that will support us and support us well. I encourage you to refer to chapter 41 throughout this entire semester. Try different reading strategies. This is not only going to benefit you in this class, but it will also benefit you in your other classes, because knowing how to be a good reader is what learning is all about. As always, I thank you for watching. Please let me know if you have questions, and I'll be glad to help you. Thank you, and have a good day.